Let's say you own a home and you'd like to buy a new home. What are your best options in today's market with today's limited inventory? Well, the best option is to simply go buy your new home and move and then sell your existing home. But what if your finances are limited and you just can't do that? Or what if you need the proceeds from the sale of your home in order to purchase your new home? What are your options at that point? Well, that's the subject of today's video, and we're going to get started right now. Hi, my name is David Matney with Nebraska Realty. Now, the goal of my channel is to help you buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the Omaha area, or if you're looking to move to our area, to give you some idea what our area is like. Now, let's jump into today's topic. All right, your first option in today's limited market is to negotiate possession date. And notice I said possession and not closing date. Okay, what you can do is you can sell your current home, close on it, and then you could go back to the buyer as a seller and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'll sell you my house and we can close on it, but I want to occupy the house for the next 6 months. That way you have a 6-month opportunity in that way to find new housing. So that's one of your best case scenarios. And in today's market with the limited inventory the way it is, sometimes a buyer will accept that. Okay, your next option is to make the sale contingent on you finding suitable housing. Now, a lot of buyers may do that. They may let you do that, but most buyers are going to put a cap on it. They're going to say, hey, we'll give you 45 days to find acceptable housing. In today's limited market, that can be a real challenge, but that's another option available to you. All right, this next option may not be a lot of fun, but you can move in with mom and dad, or maybe you have some relatives or a brother or a sister that you can move in with. That might be an option. Like I said, these are not the best options, but it's just something that you could think of. Another option, and I just had some sellers that had to do this. They were selling in Kansas City and then buying in Omaha, and they needed the proceeds in order to buy in Omaha. And then what they did was they rented an AirBNB or a short-term rental. So that's another option available to you. Okay, now this next thing is really important, and that is you want to make sure that you got your ducks lined up first. I had a call from a gal in California who was looking to relocate to Omaha. She was really tired of where she was located and things like that, and she wanted to move to the Midwest. She was in a situation to where she inherited a property and she had some equity, but she didn't have a lot of equity. So she would have had to sell the home in California and then still finance the home in Omaha. And she thought there would be no problem with her getting pre-approved. Well, it turns out she couldn't get pre-approved. So here she is selling a property, and then she already signed that contract. So that's a legally binding contract. So she is committed to selling that property, and then she wants to relocate. But in her situation, because she can't get pre-approved, then she is stuck renting. She could have just stayed in her home and the payment of her current home would have been less than the rent. So you want to make sure that if that's the situation, you want to line up a lender first. Otherwise, you've just really screwed yourself. So you want to make sure that no matter what, you don't want anybody to pressure you to sign anything. You want to make sure that you have housing first before you agree to sell your property. Now, when we're in such a limited inventory market like we're in right now, one of your best options might be to go with new construction because you're going to get everything new. The other thing too is sometimes they'll have a little, if you're building the home, you're going to have more flexibility in terms of build time. It might be 8 or 9 months before the building is complete. So that way, that'll give you enough time to get your home sold. Here's another thing just to consider. Now, if you are going to build and there's going to be an extended build time where it might be 9-10 months before your new construction home is done, one thing you might want to consider if you're going to go down that road is make sure you speak with the lender and get a long-term rate lock, because especially in the market right now where interest rates are moving upward, you want to make sure that you're not exposed to additional risk. Okay, this is another option, and that is to rent an apartment. Okay, and I had some sellers do this earlier this year. And then what they had to do is they had to be on a certain floor because they were an elderly couple. Somebody wrote the offer. We asked for 4 or 5 days in order to make sure that they could lock down the apartment that would meet their needs. In contract negotiations, don't be afraid to ask for additional time in order to make sure you get all your ducks lined up in a row, because once you sign that purchase agreement, that's a legally binding contract. If you do have to find suitable housing, or if you have to find an apartment and it has to be a certain apartment, make sure that you give yourself enough time before you just arbitrarily sign that contract and commit to the deals. Just keep that in consideration. And here's another thing with that apartment. Talk to the landlord about the penalties for breaking the lease, because let's say a property becomes available that you want to move on. Well, what are your penalties for breaking that lease? You want to have that discussion up front, because in some cases it may be worth paying the penalty, and then in other cases it may not. But you want to make sure you have that discussion and find out what penalties are in play if you do have to break that lease to move on your perfect property. All right, this is kind of another option, not available to everybody, but I actually had some sellers do this as well this year, and that is they had an RV. They actually moved into an RV while they were searching. They got their current home sold, and then they moved into an RV, and then they were renting an RV spot and also looking for a home. That way they could buy a home on their terms. Now, finally, the other option that's available to you is that you can make the purchase contingent on the sale of your current home. But in today's market, the likelihood of that being accepted is highly unlikely. Now, that's another option, and that's probably the least likely to succeed in terms of possibilities. But those are some items that you can use, or some tactics, if you have to sell your current home in order to purchase your new home. Now, if you'd like to learn more, be sure to check out this video next. And hey, don't forget, show some love for the channel and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications. Thanks, and make it a great day.